Well, welcome everyone to the 11th annual IBM Marketplace Survey webinar, showing you the results from this last fall when we conducted the survey. Very excited to be with you today. This event is being recorded so that you can play it back with partners, other customers, IBMers, maybe family even if you're really into IBM. We have a strong community. It's been always a pleasure putting together this survey each and every year. It reminds me of my conversation some 12 years ago with the late Dan Berger, walking out of the Common Conference with him and thinking about information in the market. And the one thing we both agreed was there wasn't enough information in the market. There was something missing. So that's where the survey started. It became an annual event and will continue to be that under the formerly Help Systems, now Fortra company. And very excited again. As usual, we have a great cast of individuals standing by to share their information and their expertise in this market. We'll start with Steve Will from IBM. Maybe you can explain a little bit what you do for IBM, even though I think most of our listeners know who you are.
Hi, guys. Yeah, good to be with you guys again. I'm the CTO of the IBMI business, the chief architect of IBMI. And what that really means is not only do I spend a great deal of time talking with clients, but I lead the team making decisions on what technology investments we're going to make based on what I hear from our customers.
Excellent. Thanks, Steve. And then Dan Sun.
Hello, everybody. Yep. So my name is Dan Sunt. I'm on the IBMI product management team. So we kind of drive a lot of the marketing, working with Steve on the development side, visiting with customers, helping products get through all of the life cycle. I've been doing this now for 4 years. Before that, I was in tech sales for many years. So I hopefully probably seen many of you at an event, or maybe I did an on-site briefing. So welcome everybody to this call.
Thank you, Dan. And then over to you, Tim.
I'm the co-editor of the 400, which has been around since 6 months after the AS400 launch. It's the first job I had out of college, and I still have it. It's amazing. I've always had another job because, you always need 2 jobs. You can't trust anybody in this world, including your own employment. But anyway, me and Alex put together the 400. We've been following this market all of our careers. And, we love this community and we'll do whatever we can to help.
Well, thank you, Timothy. And then finally, I'm Tom Huntington, our EVP of Technical Solutions at the Fortra company, longtime employee, always been an advocate for the AS400 I-Series, IBMI, call it what you want to call it. Has been IBMI much longer than it has been other operating system names for quite some time now. So excited to be with you. I'm an IBM champion and longtime member of the Fortra company, and I get involved with pretty much everything customers, and that's why I spend my day every day talking to customers. Speaking of the IBMI marketplace, I always like to remind people that this is a vibrant marketplace. There's items going on all year long. Last year in January, we released the 10th annual IBM Marketplace Survey. And by the way, these are just some of the things that are happening. The annual in-person Common User Conference. It's a great event where other passionates of IBMI from development, administration to management get together and talk about what's happening on IBMI. IBM, to highlight that, we're talking about AI for generating RPG. We dial ahead to June of 2024, Common Europe, so the equivalent of Common in the US. And then, of course, IBM released the TR releases for 7.5 and 7.4, and it coincides with the 36th birthday of IBMI. In August, we had some hardware releases, we had some new models and new use of DDR5 memory cards, and just something went aside, and that was Fax 400 at that point in time. Just thought that would be more of a funny than anything else, but
Fax is
faxes
finally
maybe.
dead.
Exactly. And then in the fall time, we had common fall in Bonita Springs, and they also had a common fall in Toronto, Canada in November. At IBM Tech Exchange, we started hearing our first information about Power 11 processor, and this was told to over 5,000 attendees of this event, and certainly was well received. I remember talking to Bill Starkey in the expo area about that. And then, of course, as the year was starting to wrap up and later in November, IBM again continued to work on this operating system, delivering new features with TR5 and TR11 coming out at the end. Along the way, I know I missed a few things. There's much more going on in this community than this, all the user groups and all the other activity and customers using the platform, but just kind of to remind everybody, it is a vibrant community, and it's far from being a technology that's going away. And we're fortunate to be part of it. So as we look into the survey, this is our agenda today. We'll talk about what we found from the data center this year, IT initiatives, outlook for IBMI, demographics, and then Fortra, just a quick wrap up on who we are and what we do. So I'm going to move right into the data center and over to you, Timothy or Dan, to go first on the data center and power servers and how that's being used.
Sure, sure. So I think kind of looking at the numbers, it seems, kind of pretty consistent year over year that, a lot of our smallish customers have one server, but it's becoming, pretty common and staying common to have, multiple servers. A lot of customers are, realizing the value of HADR, having a DR system, having a second system for, replication technology or, development and test. And then what I found interesting is we did have a couple categories like the 6 to 10, the 31 plus that had an increase. So I mean that's quite a bit of systems. And then partitioning, we've been, strongly advocating that, for our customers. IBMI is such a great operating system to have subsystems and be able to do multiple work inside of an OS image. But at the same time, there is that value of having separation. If I want to test a whole operating system version, or I want to, test, fixes on something before I test it on production, we make it quite easy with our, virtual HMC just to make it, easy. IBMI, hosting IBMI, lots of great technologies. And I just wanted to add back to servers too. Last year we introduced the S1012, kind of a new, 2U half-white server. And so that's kind of a marketplace that we think we're going to see more customers at a more affordable, lower price, we might see this, multiple system on the left increase because that you could fit two of them side by side in a rack. So might see more customers that only had one box potentially get, two boxes.
Very interesting. And then Tim, what are your thoughts on the number of servers and number of partitions in the marketplace?
I mean, I'm always surprised that there aren't at least two in most sites. I mean, these machines have come down in price so much over the decades. I blame the software, by the way, because the software hasn't gotten cheaper. But you could make a case that everybody should have local high availability and then some sort of remote replication at this point. We all know these are mission critical machines running mission critical applications, so there's just no excuse. And I don't have a lot of tolerance for it. This should change, and it doesn't change all that much. So these statistics are almost like DNA. They don't really wiggle around a lot, and the ones that do, like the 11 to 30 partitions, I don't know if that's statistically significant or not. I mean, it's hard to say, just different surveys. I will say, in general, I think the number of partitions goes up every year at most of the sites that I talk to. And why wouldn't it? It's very quick to fire one up, and there's enough granularity in the systems that it doesn't take much to run a partition. I think it's a tenth of a CPU. And, we generally have multiple cores, lots of threads, and it's just easy to do this. So, I think this is a great thing about the architecture of this machine, not how many machines you have, but how many virtual machines can you have, and I think you need a mix of all of that.
Yeah, that's the thing. People don't always realize how long we've had partitioning or virtual machines on the IBM platform since 1999, and I've only seen that the number of customers with partitions keep growing over the years.
Unfortunately, there's probably 5 people still running that original software. V5
Yeah,
R, no, it's what was it? V4 R4 was it? I think it was way back then, but yes.
yeah, there may be somebody out there. I'm sure there is. All right. Well, we need to stay current with the data center these days and keeping the operating system up to date. Steve, what are your thoughts on the IBMI operating system levels from our customers?
Well, if you've seen these year-to-year charts as much as we have now after 11 years of the survey, the nice thing here is the consistency. You know, when we put out a brand new release, it'll take about a year and a half to 2 years before half of the clients are using that thing. Then we introduce another release. So, you know, 2023, we didn't have very many people using 7.5. Now it's finally growing in this most recent survey to be a third. Next year, it'll be a half. The consistent moving forward of our client base, at least the client base that tends to answer the survey, is part of what helps us make sure that our clients can get the most advanced technology in their hands and then use it when it makes sense for them. So this is not a surprising set of numbers, and it's good to see our clients taking their time, but moving forward. Always there's a few people who are stuck on 6.1 or older, for example, or 7.1. Most of the time that's related to ISV software that they have where the ISV may not even exist anymore, but it's critical to their platform or their particular business. And we understand that, but most of our client base can move forward and this data shows it.
Very good. Tim, any additional thoughts on operating system levels?
I mean, the fact that it's doing exactly what we'd expect is kind of a leading indicator for things being normal. And these charts are meant to be comforting more than they are illustrative of some radical change. It's like we don't do radical change. We do planned change. We pay attention to what we're doing. We take our time. So I expect a lot of skip releases. We got a new hardware this year coming out, and it'll be later this year, but there'll be 7.6, and there'll be some people that jump from 7.4 to 7.6, and then we see that pattern. People don't do every release, and I wouldn't either. I mean, that's a lot of change to have to go through, and IBM has made it easy to get the technology introduced to the tech releases, tech refreshes. And so you don't have to jump to a new OS to get those features a lot of times. And I think it's going to get more stable over time because of the changes that IBM has made over the years. So I don't expect this pattern to change much. I will echo what Steve suggested. I think this represents the top third of the active base. And then you have to go and do some witchcraft in a spreadsheet, which I'll do later on this month, to try to figure out what I think the rest of the market looks like. And my best guess is it's, you know, if you look at it, what's going on 5 years ago, that's where they are.
All right.
You know, but that's a guess.
Are you in Salem, North Carolina? No, I'm just kidding.
No. I'm
go
in the
along with that
boonies.
witchcraft. All right. No, I know. I'm just kidding. So, Steve, this is the current IBMI roadmap. Any thoughts on this?
The only change, by the way, that people are going to notice is that we actually put a year at 2025 above IBMI Next. Timothy already mentioned, we expect to make another new release. We have been as predictable as we can be for the past several releases in bundling up key new software that we think is going to be valuable for almost all of our clients into a major release. So you can expect one later this year. And it'll have some key things that our clients will want to take advantage of. But again, as Timothy was talking about, I mean, we put out most of our function in between releases now so that whichever of the two most recent releases you're on, you can get access to the newest of the technologies. So again, stability. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that this is, you know, if you can comment on this slide too, Steve, I think that's stability, right? I mean, that's what these people expect.
That's right. Yep. So many of our clients want to know that there's a roadmap well out past wherever they are right now. And we saw, you know, half of our clients are still on 7.4. That means sometime in the next year and a half, 2 years, they're probably going to end support on the release that they're currently on, but you can move up 2 releases, as you were talking about, as Timothy was talking about. And so when they go up from that, there's going to be a release. We're telling you about that, and it's going to live for a good long time into the future. So this support roadmap is one of those consistency, but also good for planning pieces of material.
Very good. And then as we look at the hardware itself, I mean, keep in mind again, IBM Power runs IBM I, but it also can run AIX and Linux. Dan, what are your thoughts on the hardware platform?
Yep, so this is a lot like the OS chart that we kind of, previously talked about. It's good to see that as, new hardware comes out, our customers, kind of year over year increasing it. So the far right bar, which is Power 10, it came out at the end of 2021 on the high end, kind of middle of 2022 for the scale out or kind of the majority of our marketplace. So in the 23 survey, we finally saw Power 10 and then it's going up. Power 9, we have taken that out of the market from a selling standpoint. So you can see that number is stabilized, which makes sense to me that, I have customers moving from Power 9 to Power 10, but that number kind of has slowed down. And I would expect to see Power 9 start to shrink because next year, early 2026, is when the Power 9 servers start going into support. Power 8 last year was a big year. In 2024, they went out of support or into service. So I would expect, the steady decline of Power 8, start to see the decline of Power 9, and then with Power 10 coming up. And about every 4 to 5 years, we do, new hardware. So you can do the math, and as Timothy kind of alluded, this year, we showed the Power 11 processor at the end of last year, and that usually means within a year we probably start, showing the hardware models that will come in there. So, this will be a very predictable, and I think it's a good chart to show that our customers are transitioning off the old and moving to the new.
So Tim, what do you think about the hardware picture here?
If you compare 2021 to 2025, you can see that both Power 9 and Power 10 are doing better than Power 9 and Power 8 did back then. So, that's and the revenue shows it, right? IBM's been growing. It's not doubling in revenue. I mean, that'd be crazy, but we're seeing good growth. And Power is not just IBM I, as you point out. SAP, HANA, and all the things that wrap around that are a huge driver of this business. There's a certain amount of technical workloads going on Linux that also drive the business, and there's the core database stuff on AIX and IBM I. So there's a good steady business, but the good news for us is that IBM I is actually growing. It's pushing more revenue. It's moving more boxes, and we see this reflected in those numbers. It's not just the number of it's not just the machines you have. They're bigger machines, and people are probably doing richer configurations as they are in other parts of the market. So I think this business is healthier now than it was 4 years ago, 5 years ago.
And Dan, I know it's always important for customers to see what's supported today. Maybe you can highlight the new support roadmap for Power.
Yeah. So, this is a handy chart, especially for people like me when I get questions with customers at different, hardware. But I think this also communicates to our customers kind of what's supported on the newest stuff, so from an operating system standpoint on the hardware, and then you could look at the trajectory going forward. So as we've kind of alluded already in this call, watch this space for a new operating system, watch this space for new hardware, what will be supported. And so you can kind of see that 7.3 was out of market, or we were stopped selling it when we came out with the S1012. So that didn't pick up 7.3 support like previous Power 10 models. So again, makes a lot of sense. And then if you happen to watch our product planning pages, which is the one I put at the bottom of the page, you can see here earlier this month we made a mention that 7.5 would be the last release to support Power 9, kind of hinting that what future operating system releases will support from our hardware platform. So this is good that as our customers on those previous charts kind of showed us, the more you stay current on the operating system release, the more you stay current on the hardware, you'll get the advantages of both and not be limited by running an old release that isn't supported on newer hardware per se.
Yeah, and this represents about 15 years of of supported hardware levels. So pretty amazing. Well, we're all curious on what are you doing as customers from an upgrade plan? Are you upgrading hardware? Are you upgrading software? Tim, what are your thoughts on this chart?
Well, last year, it was 11% we're doing a hardware upgrade and 18% we're doing a software only upgrade. Those were onlys. It's the same 29%, right? So we might, because Power 11 is coming later this year, we think. And there are a lot of customers that have to do something right now, like they had to get it in their budget for 2024 or whatever. So maybe a good chunk of people have already done their upgrade and they're not going to do one early this year, but there'll be some people that run out of gas or need to buy a new machine or whatever. So I'm not surprised that the hardware's a little bit less this year. And in 2026, I expect it to expand out again, and it'll grow until people have moved up that need to move up. And but it's the same 29%, and it was 31% for the doing both last year, and it's 30. So again, it's when these charts change that we get worried. It's not that they're the same and we get worried.
There is a consistent story here, isn't there? Dan, anything additionally on upgrades?
Nope. I think again, it was nice to see the no number, go down just a little bit, and the yes number to both kind of makes sense. A lot of our customers do see a new hardware refresh or a new operating system refresh, the opportunity to do both. They typically don't do the same at the exact same time, but they do kind of have the plans for let's get current, and by current that usually means some form of hardware and software.
Very good. And the next slide that we have here talks towards the different operating systems that are sitting alongside your IBMI environment on premise. And I guess, Steve, over to you on this one.
You're on mute, Steve.
Thank you. There's going to be a lot of consistency in a lot of these things. Here's where people might start changing depending on how they answer the question. I think that there are a lot of our clients who are now putting some of their IT on cloud that's off-prem, and I'm not sure exactly where that'll show up as we continue to ask this question. And we've always had this core group of wonderful folks who have the IBMI only. That's all I use, and that's great. That's wonderful. But we know that most of our clients also have workloads that run somewhere else. Linux has grown to be not quite as big as Windows, but my suspicion is if we could find out what are people running in public clouds somewhere, probably those would be on clouds run by Linux, probably. So good consistency. Always love to see those clients who are doing IBMI only. And if you look at that last pair of things, one of the things that this survey might suggest is that there are a few more larger customers who answered the survey last year in 2024 versus this one, because it's those largest clients that will also have a mainframe, a ZOS. But that's not like a trend. It's not like people are going away from it. It's probably just an artifact of which people answered the survey.
That is true. We have different people every year answer the survey. The IBMI only too may be that IBMI's on premise and the rest of their infrastructure's in the cloud. We do have quite a few customers that run IBMI as a hybrid too.
Yep.
Speaking of cloud, Dan, I know you're pretty heavily involved in the cloud these days for IBM. What are your thoughts on premise, hybrid, cloud only technologies with I?
Yep. As you mentioned, so kind of my day job is, IBMI and our as a service offerings, which means Power Virtual Server. So I kind of see that, the data that is reflected in this chart is, cloud is not new. Cloud is, very matured. It's available by multiple, so IBMI in cloud is available by, multiple different people. And we see that those people that are, adopting cloud or external, moving again out of the data center has been pretty consistent. That I think a lot of people that wanted to go first have already gone there, and now what we see and customers I can look at my cloud Power Virtual Server that quarter to quarter, year to year, I'm seeing more IBMI customers moving to cloud, either all to cloud let's say I happen to be in the southeast where there happens to be hurricanes. We've had a couple of reference customers that have said, "I'm out of here. I want to get out of this geography." So they move everything. I have a lot of people that are still kind of, I'm not sure if I want to move my production, even though all of our clouds are, enterprise ready. Some want to start with dev test, or some might want to start with DR. So yeah, I definitely see, a trickle and, more people, moving to cloud. And then a lot of times we ask, when people ask about cloud, is a cloud a destination? Is a cloud set of capabilities? And sometimes the answer is yes to both. I want to have a hybrid cloud where I'm leveraging maybe something on-prem, but something in cloud, and that cloud I want to pay for more, operational expense. So I think this is indicative of, cloud is not going away. Cloud is an option for many customers, and we have a healthy amount of small customers that right now are perfectly fine staying on-prem.
Very good. Very good. Tim, any thoughts on cloud?
Well, I don't think there's a safe geography. So, the eye wall of Helene went over my living room. So I think the idea that, and we've had tornadoes right there a mile away. So, I'm at 4,000 feet in the mountains. So that's not normal. So nothing's normal. So I think the idea that you can go to a cloud and be safe is a false one. You can have on-premise, but you have to be in the cloud because you need both. You need geographic distribution, a distance between your machines. I think this is the reality we're in, and it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I'd say in general, this trend is drifting towards hybrid. If you look at all the past charts that we've done, and that makes sense to me as well. And I think I just said the same thing a different way, but that's why hybrid is drifting, I think, in that direction. And yes, there will be plenty of people who say, I don't want to do this anymore. They might be forced to move their machinery to the cloud so they can free up their programmer administrator to just do the programming part. And there's a lot of shops that are going to be skilled constrained. People are going to retire. It's hard to get newer people to come in, whatever. And these pressures are going to force the iron up into the cloud. And frankly, IBM's neutrality about pricing Power VS versus a Power VS private installation, it means you don't have to worry about that anymore. If it's going to cost you the same, let IBM run it. Why
Got
not?
it.
Or another service provider. I love all the service providers. But
Yeah, and you spoke about HA a few times, Timothy, and it's important to this market, and everybody should have it based on all the different disaster reasons that you talked about. Steve, what's your take on HA and DR related to the IBM platform?
Well, it's clear that over the years, more and more people have done some form of availability solution. I'm glad to see that the number of people who are doing data backed up to disk is growing in comparison to the shrinkage in tape. It's not that tape is bad, but once you have a disk image, it's easier to store it somewhere in a cloud. The recover from cloud backups is beginning to grow. I just wish that more clients had had a real plan that could get them up again within hours. I think that those clients in that bottom right chart who say that they're not currently using a high availability technology, um, I'm not trying to scare anyone. It's just businesses can go out of business within days if they can't reliably get back to running where they were when something happened. And so to not even have any sort of high availability technology and be trusting that you're going to be able to bring yourself back from a tape image or a virtual tape image in a short amount of time. I hope you test that. I hope you make sure that that's something you can do on a regular basis, because that's why so many people are using high availability technologies. They need that level of insurance, and it's only going to get more important throughout the years that are
Yeah,
coming.
I'm always uh, said in the IBMI world, you have options. The good news is you have options from backups to high
that's
availability
right.
to DR, and it's a really powerful environment from that standpoint. And if you think about today's, not only do you have disasters, but you have the bad actors in the world that are
Yep.
trying to encrypt your systems, ransomware, and whatever you want to call it. And the good news, IBMI, customers should be successful in restoring their systems either
Yep.
from backup or HA.
Yep.
So let's turn our attention to IT initiatives. Each year we ask people, what are your top 5 concerns as you plan your IT environment? So you're only allowed to answer 5 of these. And we have many options here, almost too many, but um, and you know what? I talk to a lot of Windows and Unix and Linux people throughout the year too. And a lot of what we see here is mirrored to what they have issues with in their environments too. So Steve, with that in light here, what are your thoughts on top concerns for IBMI customers?
So if you look at those top four have been the top four forever, but the shift is happening to where IBMI Skills is now number 2. It was number 3 last year and maybe for a couple of years. I think it pairs very nicely with the modernizing applications. When I talk to clients, IBMI Skills is clearly a top concern. It isn't that high availability, by the way, is getting less important. In my view, if you look at, okay, everybody gets to select 5, what's happening in the rest of the set of options? Well, we finally got artificial intelligence up at 30%, right? So people who were not putting artificial intelligence on their list at all, now 30% of the people are putting that up there. And where in the top 5 is that going to come from? It's probably going to come from the compliance and regulations or high availability, not because it's not important, but because people have figured out what they're doing there, right? And they can see that artificial intelligence is on the horizon or they've begun doing something and they've gotta figure out what that's going to mean. Security will always, well, this is a hard thing to say. Always is always a hard thing to say, but security is probably likely going to remain at the top because even if everybody feels like they have the right solution for today, people are always hearing about what's coming tomorrow and how things are going to get more dangerous. So I'm not sure that we should ever expect that security will drop out of the number 1 spot. But that skills thing and the fact that artificial intelligence is growing in importance, I think is the change. It's the trend here that we want to pay attention to.
Very good. Over to you, Tim.
If I had a magic spreadsheet, not to bring that up again, I'd want to see how these things are apportioned in their budgets and then what they're concerned about. What are you worried about? What are you spending on? And we don't have a sense of that. Do they put their money where their mouth is? I don't know.
Yep.
Or where their adrenal gland is or whatever. That's the first thing. And I think that we spend far less time on security and we spend far too much time worrying about it. I think that we're spending a little bit more money on artificial intelligence because we think of that as an opportunity. And last year that was 18%. The year before it was like in the 9% range, if I remember correctly. I think either next year or the year after, we'll see. But I think in next year it's in the top 5. It's in the high 30s, low 40s. And I think it'll eventually be in the top 3 because IBM's going to have the tools to help people do this. So then they can actually start doing something, and it becomes not just a concern, but a thing they're doing, and code assist, et cetera, the other things. So that's what I find interesting is, watching that change over time.
Very good. And speaking of cybersecurity, the other thing we do is we ask people what types of technology are they using in cybersecurity. Now, the good news across the board here, we've seen an increase in the use of exit point technology, privileged access compliance, antivirus and so forth. You can read all the various solutions. I think some of the things I'd have to remind the marketplace is that we often hear IBMI is behind the firewall. IBMI can't get viruses. And some of those things are true to the extent, but then keep in mind, how do bad actors get into infrastructure and go unnoticed for 6 months? Do they have access to your IBMI server as a result of that? Potentially. And then the other thing is, keep in mind, a lot of the hardware technology we're using, it too has vulnerabilities. You'll see CVEs. I think it was just, I want to say Fortinet servers last week, or network devices were having issues. So those things are going on all the time, and we have to pay attention to these things. Again, like backup and recovery, we have options in the IBM marketplace for security to help you go even further than what IBM has done. And as we look at cybersecurity challenges, this is probably the hardest thing. The world's changing, Steve, right? And the cybersecurity challenges are changing.
Yeah, probably the most concerning number here to me is how many people think they don't have the right security knowledge and skills, second from left, right? Almost half the people are concerned about that. And the putting your money where your mouth is, Timothy, is such a good way to put it. I'm not sure that people are taking advantage of the training opportunities that are out there and the products and services that are out there. If you don't have the necessary security knowledge and skill in-house for you, find someone that you can trust and you can pay for to help you, because those other things, whether it's the potential for ransomware or whatever, they may not hit you for the next few years, but you want to know that if they do, you have someone who has knowledge and skill and experience that can help you get there. So that's the most concerning number here to me, is how many people feel like they just don't even have any or enough security knowledge and skill.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, one of the things I'll just throw one additional comment. At Fortra, we do something for free. It's called the free security scan. It will get you that knowledge to get you started so that you can move along your way and understand your security posture. That's really what it's about. And so we can help you out rather quickly. Now, we also know, as we've done the study for over a decade now, the regulations have not gone away, and they will never go away. We're here to say that they're always going to be here. What's changed is there's new regulations. Like, we didn't talk about GDPR 10 years ago. We did talk about PCI and SOX and JSOX and HIPAA. We didn't talk about state regulations as much as we do. And now we're even hearing from those who say they have no regulations. They still are concerned about regulations because they want to go public, or they're dealing with a supplier or a vendor that's requiring them to adhere to regulations that they're doing. You might be a private company, but you want to do business with the government and build for government contracts. Well, you got, in the US anyways, you got the CMMC regulations. I just had one of those conversations this last week. So regulations are here to stay. They're not going away, and that's just the way it's going to be. On the next slide here, we have talking about the application. Steve, I know you love this particular chart.
I do. With the thousands of applications that are out there, a lot of people tend to think that every client is running a package. And it's certainly true that a lot of clients run a package, but I use that far left bar so many times to explain why so many people care about modernizing applications. Because if 70% of the people responding to this survey, and this number has been pretty consistent over the years, have some in-house written application, they probably have a package, but they need to customize it, or they need to add something in addition to what the package does. And so 70% of our clients have applications that they need to at least continue to make sure they work, and probably need to modernize. It's great that we can see several of our big ISV partners having a significant part of our customer base. But whether you are an ISV listed on this chart, an ISV not listed on the chart because you're in the other, or whether you're a customer who's written something on their own, there's modernization that you're going to have to worry about, and that's going to lead to, okay, where are the skills going to come from? And we're going to get there in a minute too.
Yeah. Tim, over to you. And just to remind you guys, we're probably going to run out of time if we keep at this pace, but
I'll
we'll keep
keep it
Okay.
moving ahead.
short.
Yeah.
I'm comforted by that 70% as well, for obvious reasons. And, that's why we put it in, started asking the question correctly about 5 years ago, because I said, there's no way everybody's got third-party applications. And I knew my customers are people that program their own stuff. That's who they are. I would say that the trend, there's a trending of a smaller amount of percentages across all those third parties. And I don't know if that's significant or not, but I'm going to be watching that because that might be an indication that we got the diehards doing their own stuff and these people are shifting to other platforms. Like if you are an SAP customer, you might be jumping to AIX or Linux on Power. Now you're not IBM and I anymore because you were running the old, business suite or whatever they had before that. So I'm going to watch the trend on this other side a little bit.
It's always about the applications, right? That's what makes this platform so sticky. And one of the things that's been a high productivity part of the operating system has been the languages. And Steve, maybe you can explain a little bit what's behind RPG and its integration with I.
So RPG from the very beginning was meant to be a language that could, in a very high performance way, work with the data on the platform to do what you needed. Now, I know from the history of why it was called RPG, it was about running reports, but really it's about doing your business rules, right? Whatever it is that makes your business what it is. And the heartening thing about seeing 91% of our customers saying that when they're doing new development, they're using RPG. We've tried to make RPG easier for brand new programmers who've never seen RPG, make it easier for them to pick it up and do new things. But it's also the case that those open source languages that are a little further down, starting with Java, Python, Node, etc. I mean, they are being used as well because so many of the programmers who get hired by clients may not know RPG at the beginning, but they know one of those other languages and they can right away do stuff on IBM I. So it's great to see that people are using RPG because it's a super high performing way to do transactional stuff. It's great to see that when they're doing RPG, they're using the newest version. But we have those other languages because it's necessary when you bring new developers in.
And then as you guys have modernized the language too, it's good to see as many people using the newest free formatted RPG.
Yep, the ILE and free format ILE in particular, we pushed that. And again, that's one of the reasons why you can bring new programmers onto the platform.
And you might as well roll into open source, Steve, too.
Sure, and because the application environment, the application structure requires more than just compiled programs now. You have to build your application architecture with communications to other platforms, with input styles that are more than just displays, all those things. And again, we've made sure that some of the most important middleware that's in the open source community can run on IBM I so that when you bring a new application in or a new application programmer, they can have the kind of tools they would expect to have on any platform so they don't have to modify the way they want to do applications just because we have some sort of lack. So that's why it's there, and I'm glad to see it getting used. Really glad to see that the number of people using Git is now almost up to 30%. That suggests to me that a lot of people are doing DevOps kind of programming with IBM I, which is what we've been trying to push people towards. So it's not a total win yet, but it's getting there.
Very good. And Tim, any thought on this?
I think IBM has done a great job covering the open source bases, just as things are uh, volume enough and necessary enough, they seem to appear. If I could crab about one thing, I would say, and I know there's rel.ai, I know there's OpenShift packages, I know there's Watson X, but I want a simpler PyTorch Llama stack that runs like Pace. They don't even know it's there, and it runs inference, and they can do the inference without thinking about it. They just load their weights after they got a model that's trained, and now they can integrate AI functionality in the applications without ever leaving the platform or thinking about it. That would be it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Steve,
Yeah.
if you could do that.
Oh, we can do wish lists along the way here. Okay.
You're always challenging.
What about the tools stack that people are using for development, Steve?
So key to this is that leftmost side, while there are still a few organizations that are writing code on an ongoing basis using the old SUPDM, more and more of the people who say they're using that are doing it for quick little things. Here's the big change over the course of the past couple of years. While RDI has a little over 50% of our market, Visual Studio Code, VS Code, Code for IBMI is now essentially equal to it. And that's a huge, quick growth. And we have been investing in making sure that that open source technology gets the support that it can from IBM to make that happen, because you're not going to be able to do large programming projects with a hybrid cloud type approach in SEU and PDM. You're just not going to be able to. And so whether you're using RDI or VS Code, that's going to be the place that you have to do something like that. So good to see. Is it my turn still?
I failed to mention in the beginning that we added some new questions, and one of them is AI. So, Steve, this is over to you too.
Yeah, sure. So left-hand side, folks, what AI capabilities are you currently using? Timothy, I know, asked for us to add a question like this a year, 2 years ago, probably. I guess a little more than half of our clients still aren't doing any AI at all, but that means almost half are. And when you look at what they're doing, everybody should know, if they've been listening to me talk for the last year, should know that we have a project underway to create an assistant to help with code development. But 22% of the folks who are out there are using an assistant, probably. That's what the code development thing probably is. And now when you look at what people want to do with it, they want to integrate their data into AI, exactly the sort of thing that Timothy said he wants to see made easy on the platform. That's what they want, but if you look on the left side, only 17% of clients are doing it, probably because it's hard, it's new to them, that sort of thing. So there's definitely a need when you look at where people are and where they think we could provide value. There's a need for us to fill some of that space, and that is one of the strategic emphasis areas for IBM in general and IBMI for sure.
Tim, your turn.
I already said it all. Let's buy some time back. And he's right. So
He's
get
right.
it done.
All right. Very good. Well, automation has always been a focus of my career here at the Help System Fortra company. And, I've been saying for years, the platform, it's more of a mindset. If you want to run this system unattended with as few people as you want, you can do it. It's just a matter of putting the effort into it. And once you've done it, you'll always say, why didn't we do that a decade ago or 2 decades ago? So it's really encouraging to see a high number of people running the system unattended. It was built that way. Originally, I think IBM called the AS400 the operatorless environment. That goes back a long time ago. So the vision was there. Let's talk about Outlook. It's always important to look at what's going on with the platform in the business. And Steve, we talk about core applications. We talk about these are applications that are running your primary business. They're not email, they're not print services, they're not storing documents. What are your thoughts on this slide?
This is what we see all the time. When I talk to our clients, they're running their key business there. Sure, there are a few who run more of their key business somewhere else, but most of the clients who engage with us, they're running their business on IBMI. Essentially, we are a lower cost mainframe for them. And so that's who our client base is, and it's why we work so hard to make an integrated, high quality, high security system.
And then there's the steady commitment to the platform. Tim, I know you love commenting and talking to this slide every year. Any additional thoughts this year on this?
I mean, I'll just reiterate what I normally say. The number of people that say they're going to move and plan for it, and 2 to 5 years, really, good luck. It just doesn't happen all that often, I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It'll happen because somebody's using third-party applications, and the software vendor might remove support for IBMI. I mean, we see it happening over the years. But I think that I call them the IBMI diehards. Those programming their own applications, those who see the strategic value of understanding their own business and coding and encapsulating that business in their own code that they control. And that's exactly how I would do it. And it's funny to me that the very people that are trying to talk you out of doing that, the Googles of the world, they would never do that. They have absolute control of their code. So I say do what they do, not what they say, and code your own applications. And I'm comforted that this market has resisted that and invests in and sees the value of doing their own code for their own business because the businesses are unique. That's it. I'm done with the
Competitive
speech.
competitive advantages, right? Steve,
That's
any
right.
thoughts from your end?
Uh, just to reiterate something that I say every year, when you look at those people who say they're going to leave, Timothy's right, almost none of them do. What that tends to come from is there is a new leader in that organization who comes in, doesn't know the value of IBMI, sets some sort of direction that makes the people who are responding to this say, oh, my new leader's telling me I'm going to leave. We engage with a lot of those folks and eventually help them, the new executive, see the value that's being brought to their business by the platform, and then they don't end up leaving. So I understand where the 8% comes from.
No doubt. And then, really why they don't leave is all of a sudden they realize they're getting a pretty good return on their investment. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on this one, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, the when I have new just IBMers come in and ask about IBMI, it's just like what Steve said, new executives come into a company, people don't appreciate, the platform. And if you go to like a common event or a user group event, you can see the passion of the people. They like the fact that the platform gives them what they need. It's easy to use, high cost of ownership. The total cost of ownership is very high. You can come to events, you can see the people, you can submit ideas,
It's low,
request for
Dan. It's
enhancements.
low. It's not high. It's
Yeah.
low.
I mean, people just really like the platform, and so it's really nice to see this, this chart that says, hey, we were 94, 93, 96. People see the value of this platform, and it's just making sure that we can, tell the story to others because a lot of times, we're not the one that's getting all the buzz in the trade press out there.
True. Steve, any additional thoughts on this?
Nope, I think Dan said a great job.
All right, very good. Well, and to me, it's always important whenever you have a survey. What about the demographics? What makes this a good survey? And I think when we look at the demographics, we have to think about the worldwide scope of this survey. We had a little over 50% from North America. Of course, that's where Fortra's at. We put a lot of efforts into this, but you'll see the notice for the survey being open at Common, LinkedIn, IT Jungle, all the different user groups around the globe help to fulfill and get customers to fill out the survey. We had 28% from Europe and so forth. You can see the numbers. But then also let's look at the size of organizations. IBMI, the interesting thing about this platform is it lives in SMB, but it also lives in Fortune 100 around the globe. And it is doing a lot of business in all these different size organizations. And our respondents are from all different size organizations. And then titles. People who fill out the survey come from different roles within IT, from CIO levels to administrators and developers. And we would expect that. The director of VP says, hey, John, you're the IBMI guy. You fill out the survey. That's what goes on. And because they're so close to the platform. And then Steve, staffing is always one of those two things I always look at when I look at TCO. What are your thoughts on staffing with IBMI?
Well, this is one of the benefits, of course, of having an integrated operating system, the ability that we have provided people to have something that sort of runs itself for most day-to-day operations. You can't run a business on other non-integrated platforms with as few people, and that is that low total cost of ownership, high return on investment. I get a little bit scared of businesses that don't have anybody, but they often have business partners who are supporting them, and that is a key part of our ecosystem as well. That's it.
That's good. And then industry, Steve, we'll have you talk about industries too.
Yeah, for those of you who've been seeing this every year, the only one that really doesn't belong there where it fits is software development. We have, I think, a lot more people responding who are software developers, and it makes it look like that a large percentage of our clients write software for a living. No, banking, manufacturing, technology distribution, those are for sure. We do not tailor ourselves to one industry. We make ourselves a good platform, whatever industry wants to write an application on top of us, and that's what it shows.
Yeah, I think and the important thing here too is people today don't buy the hardware per se as much as they buy the application. And that's
Yep.
really what IBMI has been about for years. So I want to thank you for being with us today. Just to remind you some of the key highlights from today's survey, we had over 250 IT professionals fill out the survey this year, which is a reasonably good number. We've been as high as 800, but this is year 11. Nobody gets anything for filling out the survey. Maybe next year we'll do an incentive. I don't know. Then that whole return on investment and the high response rate there, people love the platform once they're there. Security is still a top concern. It is for everybody in every walk of life when it comes to IT. Nobody wants ransomware or problems in that area. IBMI skills is always an issue because as staff members retire, people are concerned about education and all those things. But honestly, I think Timothy mentioned our good friend Google a while ago. If you go out to Google and look for education, there's all kinds of user groups and there's Common and so forth, and a lot of free education on every topic from development to cybersecurity. High availability is certainly something that's very achievable in the IBMI world. We have many people that are using the newest hardware at Power 10, and of course the newest operating systems level too, with 82% there. I also want to remind you about resources. There's a lot of great resources out there for the IBMI community, from user groups like Common Europe, the IBM community channel, which is getting more and more active. It's more of a almost like a broadcast area. We got, of course, IT Jungle, our great partner there. MC Press, PowerWire. There's user groups in Japan. There's many podcasts from Peg, Charlie, and others out there. And of course, all the user groups. You can go out to our Fortra webpage and we'll get you over to the user groups that are out there. Who's Fortra? Well, we're your cybersecurity ally. We do cybersecurity and automation technically. We're certainly here to help you out on IBMI. We've been doing that for many, many years, my entire career here. Backup recovery HA, document management, cybersecurity. We help people automate the monitoring of the system, the batch scheduling. If you are looking at Power 9, Power 10, Power 11 technology, we help people with capacity planning. We talked about data analysis. We also help people out with business intelligence on the IBM I platform. At Fortra, we are a large cybersecurity company, a large automation company, helping people with pretty much all aspects of cybersecurity, from email security, data protection, brand protection, penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, secure file transfer, and then we do many of those services in a managed fashion. As I said earlier, not only IBMI has a skill shortage, there's also a skill shortage in other platforms. And then, of course, our IBMI automation, systems management, cybersecurity. And at Fortran, we also work on BRMS, Power HA, and RDI. So with that said, I want to thank our panelists again. Steve, any final words from you?
No, this has been good. I hope everybody pays attention to it. And let me just say one more time something. I use this internally to educate other IBMers very, very frequently. So thank you to everybody who participated in the survey. Thank you to you folks who helped put it together and get the responses, because it is super valuable to the whole community and certainly inside IBM.
Thank you, Steve. Timothy, over to you.
I'm just glad to be here. I'll keep it simple.
Thank you. And Dan, of course.
Yeah. Again, I echo their comments, and like Steve said, this I think when I'm doing presenting and I'm showing this, a link to this afterwards. Hey, come look at the PDF, and as a customer, take a look at it. Look to see that we as a platform are doing the things that match your top concerns, so that we're trying to stay relevant in a customer and their customer's industry.
Very good. Well, thank you. And on behalf of Fortra, thank everyone. Have a wonderful day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye. See you, Dan.
See you later.